Greetings and salutations, test takers. This is the Series 7 Guru, aka Dean Tenney, coming to you from my off-grid location here in Northern Arizona, joined by our always special VIP guest, the Test Geek himself, Brian Lee. He's the managing member of Test Geek Exam Prep LLC, and we're here every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific time, to answer any content questions to the best of our ability. I joke we're able and willing, but those are different things. Sometimes we're able and not willing. Other times we're willing, not able. I'm joking. We're both able and willing to answer any questions you have. It would be helpful if you tell us what exam you're taking with your question, like with a Q and question format. Let me just put that on there. Tell us where you're joining us from. And then that way, Brian and I aren't guessing about, what exam it is, because the way they test on things is different on each exam. It's not necessary, but it's helpful. So if you can help us out, that would be great. Housekeeping, backstage stuff. If you're using my channel is the best free supplement to your paid study materials. And it's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. It's organized by series playlists. So you find your series like SIE. There's 3 playlists. One's lectures, one's practice tests, one is a podcast. And that's in suggested watch order. The videos are in suggested watch order. But again, please don't send me an email. What video should I watch? Your choice. Now, in terms of paid study materials, by the way, one other point. If you're looking for a particular thing, go to channel search bar and put that into there, like accrued interest or margin or settlement, because then that particular content will come up. Trying to find like accrued interest in 1,000 hours of videos is difficult. So use that channel search bar. So if you want to binge, use series playlist. If you're looking for a particular topic, use the search bar. In terms of paid study materials, paid supplements, I think the best paid supplement out there is a twofer. To get the Kaplan Q Bank, because until we convince Brian Lee to write his own Q Bank, which I don't think he's going to do because I've been trying to get him to do it forever, he has a beautiful practice final, and I think that's about it. So buy the Kaplan Q Bank. You can get 15% off with Guru 15. And then Brian has been kind enough to sell his paid supplement to our viewers with a 20% discount. That's Guru 20. That means all in, you're into Brian for about $100. But boy, in terms of distillation of that license exam manual and even distillation of Dean's thousands of hours of videos, not a bad idea to buy Brian's video series. It's the videos, a PDF, all that kind of stuff. And I think that puts you in at $150 with the Q Bank and with Brian. And I know there's a lot of people using Achievable as a paid supplement. I just think a better value is Brian and the Kaplan Q Bank. I'll leave it at that. We have communities outside of the YouTube channel, right? There are other communities that are a part of Guru Nation. And those are our Reddit communities. We have Reddits for each of the exams, our Series 7 for the SIE, and for the Series 7, our 66 is our Reddit for 63, 65, 66. Our Series 24 is our Reddit for 9s, 10s, and 24s. And we also have a Facebook community. I'm not a big Facebook fan, but a lot of people are. So, if that's where you want to participate, that's called Baby Brokers Doing Hat Tricks. Right now, there's somebody over there who's posted looking for a 65 study buddy. So if you're interested in being a 65 study buddy, go over to that Facebook page and let that person know you would be interested in being that. Now, remember, I just warned you, Facebook, you're who you are is not masked. So on the Reddits, you're anonymous. So that there's advantages and disadvantages of both. So just, be a smart adult, I guess is what I would say. Let's see. If you miss our live stream, it's available as a podcast on Spotify and YouTube. It's called Ask the Series 7 Guru, and it's podcast form. We do a drawing each night. Tonight, the drawing will be for a scholarship to our Thursday balance sheet fundamental analysis class. We're doing that Thursday, 5 p.m. It's $40, and that will be what you can win tonight in the drawing. P.S. That'll be available as a replay afterwards. And it also gets you the free office hour. We have 2 free things. If you're interested in freebie things, the whole channel's free. But on my booking page, deantennytutoring.setmore.com, office hours are free for paid people, means a student, and a live stream overtime session. And after tonight, I will put up a free office hour. For that, you have to spend some money with me. And then the live stream where anybody can participate. All right, let's see. I think that's any other housekeeping. I think that's pretty much it, Brian. Let's get in and see what we got going.
Let's do it.
Let me get rid of that. Let me get rid of that banner. Boom. All right, Series 6. Amani, I love that. That sounds pretty cool. Amani, I hope I'm not slandering that. I wish we showed more Series 6 love than we do. I do have a Series 6 playlist. Isaac, who I just finished a session with Isaac, took a Series 6, and we had talked about doing some stuff together. We just didn't get the time to do it. So reach out, Amani, particularly if you have a QID or a question, please reach out to me, because I want to show more love to our Series 6 folks. I think sometimes they get lost in the mix of the 7, the SIE, and other things. So please reach out. Gustavo, I love it. Hi, Dean and Brian. Hello, Gustavo. 65, good evening. Can you break down working capital? I certainly can. So you might want to join us, Shannon, Thursday night, but working capital is a balance sheet calculation. And on the balance sheet, we're going to have current assets and current liabilities. And working capital is the current assets minus the current liabilities. All right, what makes it go down? Well, if a board of directors declares a dividend, that becomes a current liability. Right, Janet, I would think about your own personal situation, right? Dean's working capital. Dean's current assets, cash, or things I plan to turn to cash within 12 months. And Dean's current liabilities, things I plan to pay within the next 12 months. That's my working capital. If I get a new bill, for example, Shannon, today I just had my cabin painted here in my off-grid location. Hey, I forgot I'm in my off-grid location. I thought I gave myself permission to have adult beverages during live streams in my off-stream location, but man, I forgot to put my tequila out. Damn. Oh, well, I guess you have to deal with me sober. But Shannon, I'm waiting on the invoice from my painters. And what's going to happen to Dean's working capital when this live stream is over and I open up and I have an invoice? It's going down, right? So to answer your question, what decreases working capital, the most common version of this on the test is a declared dividend, right? Next point, what makes it go up? If we sell securities, right? So let's say that Dean takes out a mortgage on this off-grid location. This place is paid for. So the acreage here, the cabin, this off-grid studio, I paid for it using cash. Shannon, so my working capital as I pay these things is going down. But if Dean takes out a mortgage, what happens to my working capital? It goes up, right? Because I sold a security. The proceeds are going to go into cash, and that would be what makes working capital. The most common example of that as a test question is selling bonds or stock, and that would have the working capital go up. What doesn't change it, I'll leave one more, and I'll let Brian see if he wants to add anything. The trick on the Shannon on the test is that when we pay our bills, our working capital does not change, right? So when I pay my painters, I have less of an asset called cash, but I have less of a liability. That has no effect on my working capital when I pay it. How does that relate to a corporate balance sheet? The most common version there, Shannon, is when we pay the dividend. The payable date has no effect on the working capital. Declared date, working capital decreases because we have a new liability. Payable date, no effect because we have less of a liability, but we also have less cash. That's a wash. So when you pay your bills this evening, that will not affect working capital. You want to add anything to that, Brian?
I will. If you're taking a 65 or a Series 66, and even a Series 7 to some extent, know your balance sheets. And I mean know the components, each part. For the 65, 66, there's really two balance sheets you got to know, one for the corporation and one for your customer. The customer one's not so sophisticated. It's not so complicated. But you got to know the... I don't know, Dean, how many times I've told people, you got to know your balance sheets. I have an entire YouTube video on there for, my free videos on balance sheets. And I stand there and wag my finger and tell people that if you don't know your balance sheets, it's going to be tough to pass.
Shannon, I don't recognize you from as a regular just because I love your fedora. And so I'm assuming you are not a regular in our live stream. So what we do, Shannon, is we will link in the video descriptions of videos that Brian and I have mentioned. So I will link to video in the video description on the replay. I'll link to Brian's balance sheet video. I have one as well. And then consider joining me Thursday night, $40, 5 p.m. Well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go through a balance sheet, tear it apart, put it back together. So those are all recommendations. So after our tonight, check the video replay and you'll see a link to Brian's balance sheet YouTube video and Dean's balance sheet YouTube video.
For those of you who have content outlines for the 65 and 66, you'll notice that the balance sheets, corporate balance sheets, are in Module 1, which tends to be, for people who don't make the mark, tends to be one of the lowest scores.
Yeah.
Know your balance sheets.
Yep. Brian and I talk about it all the time. Even if you're taking 66, they go more in depth on 65 and 66 NASA exams than they do on the 7. So it's a little more depth on NASA exams. Ohio, love it. I love it. For everything, I passed SIE. Now sit pass. Oh, where's my? Where's my bell go? Where's my?
You left
bell?
it in Las Vegas. You left it in Las Vegas.
No, I buy duplicates of everything. Huh? My contractors, what are they doing? Messing with my bell? Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Wow. I think I put too much acoustic foam in the studio here. Is that just me, or does that not sound as?
Sounds good.
Oh, I'm wearing a headset. Maybe it's the headset. This is.
I will.
Yeah. So let's see. Now I got too excited there. Baston now 66. Love it. Love it. So I think, Michael, that means you've done the hat trick. The hat trick is 3 successes in a limited time frame. SIE 766. Hat trick.
Hat trick. Triple crown.
There you go. Trifecta. Pass the 7. Right. Woo. If you're new to our Tuesdays, there's a movie called It's a Wonderful Life. And in that movie, there's an angel called Clarence who's trying to earn his wings. And in the context of the movie, every time somebody rings a bell, he says, oh, that's an angel getting their wings. So in our version of that, the bell is for those who pass their exam. Our always faithful viewer and joiner, Marcel from New Orleans. Yeah, so far so good. Does it give me in the chat? What do you think? Does it sound as good as my studio in fabulous Las Vegas? I am wearing the headset, and I don't like the headset, and I put up a bunch of acoustic foam, so I'm still not comfortable. Let's do the. That's how I usually do it, but who knows?
It sounds the best tonight that it has ever.
Okay. So maybe I have a future of headsets. So, Marcel, I didn't think about. Thank God I didn't do this because I have a lithium battery. Someday I'll do a tour of the studio here, but I have a lithium battery, Marcel, that could power the Millennium Falcon. This thing is incredible. And so I told these off-grid people, because I'm not an off-grid, I'm a city slicker, that I want to have the highest solar panels that you can get. I want to have the best lithium battery and the best inverter. And other than that, I'm just paying you to hook it up. Oh, they told me you need, because everybody's using lead iron batteries. But I wanted to originally going to put it in the cabin while I did the off-grid thing, the container studio. And the guy talked me out. I'm so glad, because that inverter makes so much noise that if I would have had that in my house, I would, I couldn't sleep. So I built this closet that I can close the door on the inverter, but I don't want to get so hot that, I end up blowing up my system. So we still have some kinks we got to work out, and that's one of them. Question. John owns a startup company and he needs more capital. So I hope that John was smart enough to set up a corporation, a C Corp, because test questions, C Corps are the easiest business structure to raise capital. John is okay with losing ownership. So that suggests equity to me, that he's going to issue equity in his C Corp. He wants to retire in 5 to 10 years. Oh my God. Well, I think his time horizon's a little short. What would this be, a venture capital or an IPO? I think that'd be venture capital. He's going to sell out to a strategic buyer, usually. So that would be, I'm not sure where this question's coming from, Gustavo, but I would say if you are starting up this company like AI or whatever, unless you can scale quickly, right? The keyword is he wants to retire. So that means he doesn't want to stick around. So that's why I'm saying it would be a venture capital and then a strategic buyer. I don't think we'd do an IPO. What do you think? Our IPO, Brian, and then kick the cash out that way?
Being a startup company, it'd be more likely venture capital.
I think so.
And it doesn't mention anything about registration in the SEC
Yeah,
and
yeah.
underwriting and all of that stuff. I don't know where that question
Yeah,
comes from.
I don't think. Yeah, I would.
I can guess. I think I know
I
where
think
it comes
I passed perfect. Is that what you're going to say?
from. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's something you're going to encounter on an actual exam.
Yeah. But startup company to me would tell me
Venture
venture
capital,
capital.
early life stage. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hi, Dean and Brian. I'm having trouble understanding the basics of a riskless principal versus net basis. Does riskless principal always have two orders on the tape? I would need more context for that. What is it, Oscati? um, I think mainly the point about riskless principal, I don't know what exam you're taking, is that the 5% policy, one of the justifications for charging a higher markup or markdown is inventory risk. And in a riskless principal trade, I don't have inventory risk. And so I'd be hard pressed to be charging somebody more than 5% for a riskless principal trade. Basically, riskless principal means rather than acting as your agent, I bought it maybe at the ask of 16. I sold it to you at 1601. That's a riskless principal. I didn't act as your agent, and boom, right? And would it be two trades on the tape? That depends. Net basis would be kind of the same thing where I actually have the net basis where I'm telling you the net to you is X, and then the markup or markdown would be separate from that. What do you think, Brian, about that one? I'm not sure the context of what the question is being asked.
Yeah, and which exam? We're assuming this is 24.
I'm thinking.
And you're absolutely right. The riskless principal transaction has everything to do with the 5% markup policy.
Yeah, Scotty, if you're looking at a particular question, send it to me at dean@guruexamprep.com. Send me a screenshot of what you're looking at. And I think I can be a little more helpful than I'm being right here. So screenshot it. I'm not sure if you're asking this. Tell me what exam, who your test prep vendor is, and what are the circumstances when you're being asked about this.
Is there any circumstance where there would ever be two orders show up on the tape?
Well, the sell side would report. So, that's why I'm talking about the context. You might consider the first transaction, the second transaction, both to be reportable, in which case we would say yes, but it's the sell side reports to the tape in 10 seconds. So usually there would be not two orders to the tape.
Because that would duplicate it, yeah.
SIE this Saturday from Charlotte. Watched and took notes on all your SIE, helped a ton, practice 80. Well, there you go. I think you're good, Jake. I think you're good. I think you're exactly where you need to be. So wonderful.
Absolutely. Yep.
Can't think enough. Well, de nada, as we say. We're always very gratified when our help contributes to test taking victories like yours. Brian, Daniel, been watching the 66 videos. Finished the 66. Well, thank you, Daniel. I think I have an email from you, Daniel, that I have not responded to. I've been pretty busy. So if so, just be patient. I think I'll get to that. I'm not sure if you sent it to social media, but I think I'm sitting on something from you from somewhere. So feel free. I'm being serious.
It's difficult keeping up with all those, isn't it?
I'm being serious here, not facetious. I pride myself on being somebody who returns emails and phone calls, but the challenge has been the channel has blown up. I mean, we went past 4 million viewers. We 30,000 subscribers, and Dan, you deserve a response. But there's people who are jamming me up who I don't even know, who I feel bad, and I just got to figure out a way to say nicely, listen, unless you're already in the mix with me, I just can't physically respond to every email people are sending me. But Dan, all that to say that you are not one of those persons. Marcel's not. One of the advantages of being a loyal participant in our live streams or in our evenings, whatever, is that, hopefully I don't lose you in the mix, Just past the SIE. Woo! Great help with the tip. Always overlearn. Always overlearn. Yeah, because that's just going to pay. Ahmed, Brian and I both think that if you overlearn the SIE, you can almost pass right out of the 6.
Almost.
We're not saying don't do any work, but it pays huge dividends. And if you're taking the 7, it lays such a nice base. So I always am so happy when people don't come out of the SIE wobbly. They come out strong with a good testing victory, 1-0 going into that second leg. That's the way to do it. If you can, we'll take a victory any way we can take a victory, but There you go. Please do. Please do. Clearing firm versus introducing firm. So clearing firms. Well, they do. It's in the test specifications, Brian. I don't know if anybody's seen it. I haven't any debrief on it. But let's just go over it because I do think it's helpful. To clear a trade, you need 4 departments. So to say you are a clearing firm means you have an order department. The order department, test function about job functions, transmits the order to the appropriate market center for execution. You need a purchase and sales department. The purchase and sales department generates the confirmations and matches the trades. You need a margin department that determines whether monies and securities are due. You need a cashiering department to accept delivery of monies and securities. So to say you're a clearing firm is to say you can clear a trade. You have an order department, P&S department, margin department, cashiering department. Now, I would know that sequence, and I have a memory aid device for that sequence. Order peanuts, Mr. Carter, or other people's monies count. That's the sequence of that. Now, a lot of us don't want to have the expense of having all those departments. So I used to say, Brian, I can't steal what I don't have. I don't have your monies and securities. My clearing firm does. National Financial, Pershing. And your statements are going to say Gamma Global Investments as introduced to Fidelity. It's fully disclosed that we're introducing you, Jake, to a clearing firm. So while the definitions of broker dealers are within the test specifications content outline of the SIE, I got into it, Brian, with somebody at Kaplan about this. He's the subject matter expert on the SIE, and his definition was not correct of a prime broker. And then he was telling me, basically, well, I said, well, I used to do that for a living, so I know of which I speak, and that's not there. And then I said, but who cares? Because nobody sees it anyways, right? So I don't think, Jake, you'll see it. What do you think, Brian? You don't think he's going to see it? Nope. And that's why Brian gets so mad at us, Jake, when we do what I just did.
I'm not mad.
He's disappointed. Micheline.
I don't like it.
Tax considerations, performance measures. I think performance measures are more important than taxes. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah. It's so interesting. I'm so glad that you brought this up because I work with a lot of people who are working on their 65, and I always ask for the performance tracker. I'll bet you dollars to a bag of donuts that's where she got this from. And I swear, 8 out of 10 people always score lowest on those 2 categories. I want to see Kaplan's questions on these things. Because they can get a little funky. I want to see how they relate. I hear you. I feel you. These 2 categories on the performance tracker are always the lowest that people score on. All the
Micheline,
time.
I would just make sure you can do total return. You have an understanding of total return. That's definitely
right.
Definitely there. Tax considerations, big picture. We're not tax professionals. A general understanding of how taxes are an impediment to investment success. What I mean by that, what are the tax consequences, short term, long term, $3,000 against your personal income, step up in a basis for somebody who dies. So the stuff that's there, Micheline, is there. I would say on both those sections, though, on the actual exam, they're pretty much on the broad avenues and highways as compared to test prep vendors who really get in the weeds sometimes on both of those things. But I wouldn't say it's not there. I would just say when Brian and I talk to people who miss the mark, this is not usually what did them in. Right, Brian, did you see how in Spirit-filled Micheline, Brian got about balance sheets? And remember what his point was? He got Spirit-filled because he knows that can be a place where people miss their mark. Right? This, I don't think, is the one that comes up with Brian and I when we're asking what happened to you. They say, oh, man, that tax thing, performance measures.
Tax considerations and performance measures.
Yeah. So welcome, Isaac. There we go. Isaac was kind enough, Brian, to let us record him taking a 63 shared screen final. And we did run out of time. And so I will, Isaac, give you another Zoom and we'll get together and we'll go over whatever remaining issues you have. So he did pretty damn good. He boy, in the Marines, we have what's called a clean shot, boom. And he had some performance opportunities where he was clean, man. He went right to the answer without getting bogged down. And NASA exams are very easy to get bogged down in because like we had one about the investment advisor rep, Brian, and they had all kinds of convoluted language. But at the end of the day, what I loved is Isaac went right to, do they have a place of business in the state? Period. Full stop. That's all you need, right?
Oh, there you go.
Should you sign up? Absolutely, you should sign up. What kind of question is that? How much of it will be on the test? I think we've been commenting on your 7, Marinos. It will be there, but it won't be as much. Should you have a general understanding of working capital on a Series 7? I think so. Do I think you need to know at the depth of 65, 66? I do not. But yeah, feel free to join us. I don't think it's a waste of your time. I look at the description of the class. The description of the class is called Fundamental Analysis, and it's about the balance sheet, financial statements, and what you need for both FINRA and NASAA exams. I would tell you there's more of that on the 65, 66, but balance sheets are fair game on the 7. What do you think, Brian?
Well, if he's taking the 7, I'll bet you he's aiming for the Series 66 soon after. Yeah. So why not?
Let me say it this way, Marinos. On the 7, I went, this was our 4th year on the channel. I went into the 3rd year with no lectures on balance sheets because I didn't think it was material, and I was trying to do the content I thought was most important. But now there's 2 or 3 balance sheet lectures there. Brian has his free one. Does your description on your free YouTube balance sheet distinguish what exam it's for, Brian, or not? Or do you say call it balance sheet?
I generally do. It's usually 65 and 66.
Yeah, okay.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah. What should I take? Which exam should I take next week without employer sponsorship? Okay, so melanated marketer. I like that. MM. Here's what I would say. Your 65 can be operational without a 66. So the decision you have to make is, are you holding out for sponsorship by a broker dealer to take a Series 7? Because if that's the case, the 66 would make sense, but it doesn't work without a 7. It's what we call a co-requisite. So with a 65, you could go to work at a fee-based fee-based investment advisor like Fisher Investments, for example. Those men and women have 65s. They don't have 6s. They don't have 63s. They don't have 7s. Now, the other thing with the 65 is then if you do find a sponsoring broker dealer, you could take a 663 or a 763. And if you had the 65 and a 763, the 63 is the equivalent of a 66, 63, 65. Kind of convoluted, but that's how I would think about it. You can take any NASAA exam without sponsorship. So basically what you're deciding is, are you going to take without sponsorship a 65 or 66? I don't think the 63 makes any sense based on this scenario. What do you think, Brian? What would you add to that? Is that kind of what you would?
The one thing I'm concerned with, if it's a 65, it ain't going to be next week.
Well, there you go. That's true. Yeah, that's a little ambitious.
Just a tad, yes.
So
we're trying to be nice about it, and it's just, man.
So I hope that was helpful. I don't know if it was helpful or not, but that's what I would do. I would kind of think what that path is.
I have several folks who are taking exams on their own without sponsorship. And the one thing that they always get kind of bogged down in, Dean, and you just kind of touched upon it, the difference between the FINRA licenses and the NASAA licenses and what firm does which and those sorts of things. So, if you're just trying to get licensed so that your resume looks good when you do go for sponsorship, having the SIE N65 is always going to look good. They know that you're already motivated. So get either of them. They'll explain where else you'll need to go with, whether it's the 6 and 63 or the 7.
Brian, but based on Brian's discussion too, I'm just adding, I think if I were an employer, just because of what we talked about with the 65, that's a bigger hill to climb. I'd be more impressed. Yeah, I would be more impressed with somebody who showed up with a SIE and a 65 than an SIE and 66. How about you, Brian? What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So maybe that might be helpful in terms of that decision. I certainly can, McLean. So I always joke, if anybody ever asks you about economics, finance, or investments, and you want to sound smart, you should say it has a lot to do with interest rates. People say, what about them? And you want to sound smart, you say they fluctuate. They say, is that good news or bad news? You say, it depends. Can you tell me more? Right. The longer you can go without answering a question, the smarter you're going to sound. Right. That's called the Socratic method. Right. I would remind you that Socrates was put to death for being too much of a Socratic person. Right. Anyways, this is, I love that Brian has got out his whiteboard. And the reason I love that is because it is indeed an answer set on the test. That is the answer set. So you need to know where the money is coming from, Nicolene, and where the money is going to. The prime rate test question is what banks charge their best commercial customers. I joke, Nicolene, this is what you pay to borrow money if you don't need to borrow any. This is what Apple pays or Google pays. I thought this was fascinating, Brian. Formerly, ExxonMobil had AAA credit, according to Standard & Poor's. And Standard & Poor's put them on credit watch and said, listen, you're distributing too much of your capital through dividends distributions. You're spending too much on capital expenditures, and we might have to downgrade you to AA. And we know how important that AAA credit quality is to you. And I love ExxonMobil's answer. They said, no, we are more important to us as our shareholders. We pride ourselves at ExxonMobil as having a dividend that only goes one way, up. And through the business cycle, we're a blue chip. Through good times and bad in the oil and gas business, we kept doing what we do. We spend billions finding oil in Belize, billions in dividends. And then I love what they said, and we don't need to issue any bonds to finance our business activities. If we need money, we can go to JP Morgan and say, can we borrow $20 billion at prime? And they say, Jamie Dimon will say, how about $40 billion? Right? So prime rate is banks to its best commercial customers. Next one, broker call. You know, Nicolene, a very competitive way to borrow money is using a margin account where you pledge your securities as collateral for the loan. You know, here recently, Skydance, the person who controls Skydance, the studio, is a guy named David Ellison. And David Ellison is Larry Ellison's son. And Larry Ellison has over $100 billion in Oracle stock, and he loves to borrow against it. I mean, he just borrowed $500 million from Morgan Stanley recently to buy the island of Lanai. When they were giving him grief about his margin account, I love his response. He said, you know, I might want to buy the Lakers someday. I said, Genie Bus, make a moat to self, right? And he would use his buying power to do so. Broker call is what banks charge brokerage firms for money, McLean. And whatever the bank charges the brokerage firm for money, we typically charge our margin customers broker call plus. What you need to know about that is that's used to finance margin accounts, debit balances, debit registers you owe your brokerage firm. Now, the only interest rate directly controlled by the Federal Reserve Board is the discount rate. That's from Fed to member bank. Test question. That is the only one that's directly controlled by the Fed. So if you need money, for example, you're a bank and you need to meet your reserve requirement, and you can't get it from a fellow bank, that's a red flag that a fellow bank won't lend you this money. You can go to the Fed window, the discount window. Beep, beep. I need $10 billion. I'm joking. But the discount rate is what the bank, central bank, the Federal Reserve Board, charges member banks. Now, typically, Micheline, when borrowing from the Fed or from a fellow bank, you're going to have to pledge collateral, typically Treasury securities. That's choice C. Choice D, test question, is what banks with excess reserves are lending to banks with deficient reserves. That Fed funds rate, test question, is the most volatile of all those interest rates. Be careful what that means. It means it changes the most often, right? So that's banks with excess reserves, lending banks with deficient reserves. And if you are deficient and I have excess and you've asked to borrow money from me, again, I'm going to want Treasury securities as collateral. So that's a answer set that is on the exam. Depending on the question will depend on your answer set. Anything you want to add to that, Brian?
Nope.
All right.
That's more than enough, I think. The one question you might get. Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm not good at distillation.
No.
I'm teasing.
Not everything. You don't need to study.
1 year open. Well, that's a good idea, Mickling. Maybe next time I'll try that. So what do? You put like this ear over here or something? Is that what you're doing? I might just have to know that when I'm off grid, I'm going to have to use a headset. As much as I don't like that, I'm going to have to do that. What, Brian? You were going to say something?
I was just about to say, bring your split screen back.
Oh, aha, I gotcha. Beat you to the punch.
Yes, you did.
Thank you for helping with the SIE. Which should I take next? Oh, didn't we do that one already? I thought we did that one already. No. Wasn't a regular, but I am now. I love it. All right. Hey, can I ring the bell for that too? Second Tuesday every week. We're here every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Sometimes Brian doesn't join us if he's got a hockey game or a baseball game or something else going on in life. I have no life. I'm here every Tuesday. In the upper 80s or 90s, not a problem. Yeah, I think you're right where you need to be. I think so. Matthew, thank you for joining us from LinkedIn. So, Matthew, I wish people paid more attention to this phraseology because I have haters, and boy, it just drives me nuts when they don't pay attention to my phraseology. For test purposes. So when Brian and I say for test purposes, that means we know that outside of your testing fantasy land, the real world may be different. And, when you pass your tests, you get to re-enter the real world. Brian and I are stuck here in the testing fantasy land. We never get to leave. That's why we're demented. So I think when Brian and I say for test purposes, I don't think you would go wrong. In fact, Isaac and I just did a practice exam together. And every time we interpreted non-exempt as corporate security, it was correct. So the reason I like that, and I'll let Brian comment, is because within Matthew, I don't think you have to memorize that whole laundry list of exempt securities, right? I just think that's munis and governments. And, I think I go non-exempt. Okay, I'm talking about corporate security. And then I have to decide only now that I go deal with either exempt transaction or I'm going to register through qualification or coordination. So I just think that term to do that for test purposes cuts down the information substantially. Brian's word for it that I stole from is this idea of distillation, right? That gets us right to the key pivot part of a test question. So, Brian, your thoughts on that?
Turning mashed potatoes into premium vodka, right? Yeah. That's exactly right, Matt. I think for people who are reading the textbook, trying to interpret the textbook, and then, of course, transferring that to test questions, I think it's just easier mentally for people to substitute in their mind the word corporate for non-exempt, right? Corporate securities, stocks and bonds. I think everybody on the planet, or at least in our little community, knows that those securities must be registered, right? Stocks and bonds from corporations. So it's a lot easier. You don't have to go through a lot of mental gymnastics to try to interpret some very legalese. No, that's right. Why we like.
Yeah. Daniel, let's see. Efficient Frontier and QDROs. Let's do QDROs first. Very testable on all NASAA exams. That's a qualified domestic relations order. I can't imagine any draw where you're not going to be asked about it. It's a judge ordering a pension plan to make a distribution non-taxable to the ex-spouse. Very testable. Efficient Frontier is under modern portfolio theory, finding portfolios that maximize returns while minimizing risk. And that's called the Efficient Frontier. It's, not testable. A lot of us refer to that as the Northwest quadrant of, money management. So the way I always use this, Daniel, is I say, Brian and I are in a beauty contest with a prospective investor. And he says to Brian and I, listen, I'm going to give each of you $10 million. At the end of the year, whoever has more than $10 million wins. And so Brian and I both have 11 million. And he says it's a tie. Brian says it's a tie. I go, no, it's not a tie. They will. What do you mean? You got 10 million. You got 11 million and Brian has 11 million. I said, yeah, but my portfolio is more efficient. I got the same return as Brian without taking as much risk. I had, Daniel, a higher Sharpe ratio. Now, Brian's giving you a beautiful graph. Let me give him his board there. And are you plotting? I think the Efficient Frontier there is what I'm interpreting that as, right?
The Efficient Frontier, yeah.
There you go.
That's exactly right. We're trying to maximize return based on the level of risk.
Yeah.
Right? So these would be portfolios where you would maximize typically. This is how you construct portfolios. And the most efficient portfolio at this level of risk would be 70% equities, 30% debt. That's where those come from. It's very important component to portfolio construction.
Yeah, I think. By the way, I wouldn't get too worried. You're not going to have to get a PhD in modern portfolio theory. A general understanding of these things, right? Oh, Gustavo saying he actually saw that on exam. Wow.
Good.
Yeah, I would have answered venture capital, Gustavo. That would have been my answer. The 7. Okay, we'll do. Okay, so just send me an email, dean@guruexamprep.com, and I'll try and figure out what you were being asked there. I'm not quite sure what the input was, but send that to me and I'll look it up for sure. Series 24. Good evening. Again, you probably had a quick overview of regulation show and what you're likely to see on the exam. Absolutely. So regulation show, Jen, is the locate requirement for shorting securities. So this mandates that you can't do what's called a naked short sale, that you have to either have a locate requirement and be able to identify the security on the easy to borrow list. It also mandates a closeout if you are unable to have a locate requirement. So main thing is no naked short selling. There's a locate requirement, and there's a mandated closeout 13th consecutive day after settlement. Brian, anything else you'd add to regulation show?
You got it. That's exactly right. Right on the nose.
Okay.
Nice and
related. Yeah. Michelene, updated content on 65. I haven't had anybody tell me they've seen cryptocurrency questions. Brian, you have any updates?
None.
So there you go. So they take. Oh my God, Brian, you missed this whole controversy. Oh, you and I, you don't care about social media. So Brian, he's great because he doesn't worry about it because he's not his thing. I am actively involved in social media. So Brian, we have said to people that they should always answer with the most correct information at the time. We then commented that, usually it takes a while for updated things to show up and then they're tested for validity. That's spelled out in the content outlines from the regulatory authorities. And I had said that. And then somebody said, those questions are already in there and they're scored. And I heard from third parties in FINRA, you're spreading false information. I said, whoa, lighten up. No test takers are at risk based on what I have said. I've told them they should answer T+1. And then I finally lost it and said, so let me get this right. FINRA called you as a tutor and made selective disclosures about what's being tested and what are in the answer sets. I find that hard to believe. I'm calling bullshit. Disagreeable Sam. I love that. Pass your SIE. Woo!
56. Here we come.
Hello, Dean and Brian. What do you recommend a study schedule for 63 after reading? I believe in going quickly. I think, what do you think? A week, Brian, for the 63?
I think a week is good for the 63.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Just do your practice, drilling, rehearse, and go, man. Get it done. Get it done. Any advice? Well, I forget what the ice was. I don't know. It's pretty broad. Any advice for a test? I would tell you on the 6, make sure you get retail communications, a little more depth on retail communications, a little more depth on variable annuities. But I think you're in pretty good shape. I would rinse and repeat. If you got one testing victory, whatever you did to get the first one, do the same to get the second. Do you have any particular recommendations that relates to Series 6, Brian?
A little deeper into the mutual funds, especially the tax ramifications.
And NAV?
NAV, the disclosure requirements, the prospectus, pre-prospectus, those sort of. It gets a little bit more in depth.
A little more, yeah. Do you think a dump sheet would be helpful? Well, Christopher, Brian has a cheat sheet, which I think is the equivalent of a dump sheet. I always tell him I don't like that he calls it a cheat sheet because I'm always afraid somebody's going to leave it at the exam and whatever. But Brian has been kind enough to be offering that for free. I'm not sure if that offer is still in force. But if you want to, Brian, I think it's going to put his email on the board. Is that what you're putting up there?
Yeah.
No,
I'm not. Definitions and integration.
We, Christopher, Brian and I did a collaborative evening class, mostly Brian, on definition of registrations and persons. We will put that in the video description as a replay for you. That'll be there. Kaplan sells a quick sheet, and I just don't think 66 lends itself as well to a dump sheet as other exams. So, of course, you should buy the Kaplan Q Bank. And if you do, my discount code is Guru15 at checkout. You should definitely, particularly with Past Perfect, because Past Perfect really takes you into the weeds. And a Kaplan Q Bank can help you confirm confirmation or non-confirmation of test issues. If you see it in Past Perfect, you never see it in Kaplan, like who cares? If you see it in both Kaplan and Past Perfect, confirmation. And, I feel bad. I had a young lady who spent a lot of money with me tutoring her through margin questions on Past Perfect practice tests, which she's never going to see on her exam. But her firm wouldn't let her move on to the next unit in Past Perfect until she could pass that margin unit. And oh my God, after that, you could be a margin clerk. So I just think they go overboard. So I recommend a Kaplan Q Bank always as a paid supplement, unless you already have it. I recommend it for Exam FX and training consultants because I think they're too thin. And I recommend it for Past Perfect because I think they're too fat. So I think Exam FX and training consultants has too little, and I think Past Perfect has too much. And sometimes a Kaplan Q Bank can be an answer. The other thing I would, again, just remind you that Brian is also very good for that purpose as well. If you're trying to get a handle on the stuff that's actually testable, that distillation, you might want to consider spending another $100 with Brian as well. Let me just say this. It's not a time to be frugal. If you have the resources, it is a time to invest in yourself. If you haven't, I get it. Not everybody has the resources, and that's why my channel is free. I don't have any paid channel memberships. I don't sell coffee cups or mugs. It's completely free. But if you have the resources for paid supplements, you should go for it. There you go. Woo! Just passed the Series 7. Woo! STC is a good vendor. Found your channel a few days ago. Well, there you go. So STC, I think STC Kaplan just about right. Knopman's just about right in terms of content. There you go. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hard to believe, Mark. I just can't believe it. I mean, I never in my wildest dreams thought that there would be 4 million views and 1 million watch hours, Mark. That means on the average, each person you use on my channel is there for 4 hours. That just blows my mind. Now, I realize that might be one person watching the entire 1 million hours, but, never in my wildest dreams I think that. Well, of course, if you listen, if you're poor and deserve to be rich, there's nothing better than the securities industry. If you're in our industry any length of time, there's not many poor people that are here for 20, 30 years. So you will accumulate capital. So I think it's a wonderful industry. What do you think, Brian?
I'm really trying to interpret that statement there, but I don't want to. It's an absolutely wonderful industry.
Oh, is it backward? I think it's not a good industry. No, it is a good industry. If you don't think it's a good industry, why would you spend all these hours taking these tests? You're right. So
my wife is an independent advisor. She has her own business. I have my own business doing this. It's been fabulous for us. It's wonderful.
Well, listen,
we love
listen, you're in the wrong venue and wrong audience. If you don't think this is a good industry, why would you invest all these hours? What I love about our industry, think about it. You don't have any upfront investment except materials and passing these tests. Where else can you get into a 6-figure income opportunity where all you got to put in is the sweat equity and pass these damn tests? So, you're asking the wrong guy. Obviously, I'm a true believer in the securities industry because I've just seen too many people whose lives have been changed through the economics with it, by the way, and doing it ethically. Let's just add to that, doing our business ethically, like Brian's, wife. I mean, her fight, she's squared away. So she's making a living and a clean, honest living at that. And, then she can afford to buy Brian and I some wine and scotch. I'm joking, but I'm not. My friend has a wife who's a senior VP at a major financial institution. She makes a lot of money. And so I tease him because he's kind of like a house husband. And so, her name is Amanda. So we'll be smoking cigars and drinking scotch and, and we'll be talking backstage and he'll say something like, well, Amanda's got to do this or Amanda's got to do that. I go, well, listen, let's not give Amanda a hard time because she's the one who's paying for all this stuff. At a death draw. Well, there you go. I'm wishing for everybody a dream draw, but sometimes the dream draw doesn't show up. Sometimes it's the face of death draw, and you got to slog your way through it. So, Mark, kudos on slogging your way through the face of death draw. I say 20 options questions plus or minus 5. Brian thinks a little less than I do. Everybody's kind of over that. I think it really is dependent on the draw. That category, though, if you're taking your Series 7, just a heads up, that is Function 3, investments, 91 questions. And in theory, you could get 91 options and nothing else, but usually it breaks down 25 on options, 25 on munis, 25 on mutual funds. That's 75 of the 91 in most draws. So really make sure you overlearn options, you overlearn muni bonds, and you overlearn mutual funds. If you overlearn those categories, like Mark, you can still make the mark. You can get awful spastic and still pass. If you're weak in Function 3, there's nothing else that can bring you over the top because of the weighting. You won't be able to save yourself because there's not enough opportunities in Function 4 or 1 and 2. So pay attention to that weighting. You know,
I would think 25 questions was a dream draw for me.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I like options too, right? So, Brian, give me 125. If you can understand, so let's just say that too about overlearning. If you understand contract specifications, you're not struggling that a short put is an obligation to buy the security. And you can track money, however you do it, in or out or plus or minus. You would love to get 100 option questions because at that point, there's no way to trick you. Right? You just plot it out. How do you register, Matthew? Go to Dean Tenney Tutoring, deantenneytutoring.setmore.com, and go to the class menu. I'll just put it as a banner right now. So, Dean Tenney Tutoring.setmore.com. Dean Tenney Tutoring.setmore.com. I think I just put that in the chat. So it should show up in the chat. Let me put it in a banner. And then remember, if you do register for that class, you also get access to the free office hour that I do every week or so. And again, that comes after paid tutoring. So I had a guy like Isaac, we had to move him around a couple of times because we had some, paid activities. Is that showing up on the screen? No, that's not it.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't have the Satmar. Yeah, let me fix that one. I gotta get our banners squared away, Brian. I used to have all the banners in here, and I don't know what happened. Your banners for your email, my banners. Maybe it's because it's a different computer here off the grid. Maybe that's it. Setmore.com. Okay, there we go. Let's see if I got it this time. There we go. DeanTenneyTutoring.setmore.com. So if you go there and you go to the classes, you'll see the classes I'm offering. This one is Thursday. It's 40 hours. It's capped at 10. So if for some reason that doesn't let you into the class because it might have been capped out, just send me an email, Dean at Series 7 or Dean at Guru Exam Prep, and I'll override the cap for you and let you in. Boom. So we answered that. We certainly can. So technical analysis uses charts. Technical analysis uses charts. And the support line on a chart is the bottom line, right? And the top line is called the resistance line, right? Boom. And you should definitely, I'm giving Brian his board there. So you do need to know that technical analysis uses his charts. And what we're trying to do is use past price performance, McLean, to predict future price performance. All right, so there we go. There's our two lines. You need those support lines, the bottom line. And then you should know that we would place a sell stop below the support line and a buy stop above the resistance line. As a sell stop is to establish the short position if we break through that support line. The buy stop is to go long if we break through the resistance line. And they can accelerate the trend, right? So if that stock breaks through the resistance lines, all those buy stops get triggered and they can accelerate the bullish trend. And if the falls through the support, then again, that accelerates the bearish trend. So I would know where we're going to place the orders in relationship to that. I would know that we have had a head and shoulders charting pattern that is a signal of a reversal in terms of technical analysis. And I would know that under the efficient market hypothesis, technical analysis doesn't work. So if you tell us you missed your mark on 65 because of technical analysis, I'm going to say you had other problems. You had other problems. balance sheet, fundamental analysis. I'm joking. But fundamental analysis is way more important, Micheline, than technical analysis on your 65.
They do often ask you to differentiate between fundamental
Exactly
versus
right.
on both
Absolutely.
65 and 66.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ready for 66. I love it. I love it. I'm almost ready. I don't like the almost, but yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it. You know what happens too much, Matthew, is people get ready, aim, 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 aim. They don't shoot. So I'm hoping you have a test date. I'm hoping you don't have paralysis by analysis. And I want to thank Shane, and who else was it? Shane, Harpreet, thank you for joining us from Facebook. Matthew, thanks for joining us from LinkedIn. We broadcast to X, Facebook, LinkedIn. Our preferred platform is YouTube, but we always love it when we see people joining us from those other platforms. And hey, kudos, investment advisor, representative, victorious test taker in the house. If you have any 66 questions about the actual exam, I don't know why you wouldn't believe Brian and I, but if Shane sticks around, maybe in the chat, you can ask him, hey, are these two guys, full of it, or do they actually know of which they speak? What is the difference between 6 and 7? Matthew, 6 is a limited registration. It only allows you to sell mutual funds with a prospectus. A 7 is called full registration. You're a jack of all trades, master of none, master of disaster. I'm joking. 7 is full registration, but the only thing you can't get people involved with is 7 is commodities and futures. I'd say futures is a better answer. 65 is an investment advisor rep, and so is 66. 65 is different in that it is a component. 66 is a combination of a 63, 65. 66 only works with a 7. I think we went over this earlier. So most of the people, the hat trick that most people are on that are on the channel in this live stream, I'm guessing, their hat trick is going to be an SIE, a 7, a 66. That is what most people. Another hat trick would be, again, SIE 663, right? Some people are doing SIE 663, 65. So I don't know, Brian, is there anything else you want to add to that? I think that's pretty much it, right?
No, that's it. Yeah. 6 and 7 is
Limited, full.
65, 66 NASAA. Yeah. It could go.
Well, because it's a lot of work. We're the few and the proud. We're not the many and the humble. People don't like to work. I get upset when people say, do I have to read the book? Yes, you have to read the book. You have to work. Learning is work. All right. I don't think an industry should be based on how very little people want to work in advising. I'm not sure where you're coming from, my friend, but I don't even buy the original premise that very little people want to work in advising. I don't, again, maybe this is a skewed audience for that, but I don't know how to answer that. How about this? Because they're stupid. I'm joking, but I could come up with a lot of answers. I would say that when Brian and I came up, the business was substantially different. So, for example, I was a cold call cowboy. I spent hours, cold calling. That part of our industry has been dead for a long time. The transaction-based part of our business isn't what it used to be from the 80s, but the 80s were very good to me. But again, I would refer you to the successful people in our business. Whether it's Brian's significant other who's helping people. Listen, I'll just tell you from my own perspective. One of the most gratifying things that I had as a financial advisor is when I got to call Brian and say, Brian, Dean here, you've arrived at your financial destination. That is a very cool call. Brian, you now have enough money working for you, Brian, that you don't need to work for your money. If you don't want to go to work tomorrow, Brian, you don't need to. You know what? If you want to, you can call, instead of calling in sick, you can call in rich. When they say, Brian, why aren't you coming to work today? He says, I got an eye problem. We say, Brian, what's wrong with your eye? He says, I can't see coming to work because Dean, my financial advisor, told me I'm rich. Woo! Off to the Winnebago I go. So listen, I don't want to have any more conversations about, the industry is not worth it, get off this call then. Get off this live stream. This is people who want to get into this business and make a living and support their family and do all kinds of great things. So I'm kidding. I like playing tit for tat because I'm a Marine. So Brian says I should let things go, but I'll be here till 10 p.m. with you going back and forth. Right. If you have a client in California who opens a Schwab account, domiciled in Delaware, then what state is the person to go off the real person? I don't understand your question, McLean. Schwab being domiciled in Delaware has nothing to do with any question. None. Zero. The question is Schwab have an office in the state, and who are they doing business with? Retail customer. This is a very easy test question. A broker dealer only needs to register in a state if they have an office or they have a retail client. End of story. That's the entire part of the test, right? That's
really
it.
is.
It is. So, de minimis does not apply to broker dealers. De minimis is for a state covered investment advisor. De minimis is Latin for it's so small, who cares? You don't need to register. And that would be for, again, not a broker dealer. Broker dealer has one customer. Retail customer has to register in their state. De minimis is 5 or less. No office. I don't have to register. I'm state covered. I'm worried, McLean, about all these rabbit holes you seem to want to go down. These are not big test items, but I don't mind answering them for you. Non-assessable under year 65 is not considered a transaction or an offer. This is about a gift. So I say, hey, Brian, here's a gift of securities to you. Yeah, there's no consideration paid, and his shares are not assessable. That is not subject to the jurisdiction of the Uniform Securities Act. If I give Brian shares as a gift that are assessable means they can make a mandatory capital call to Brian. That is not considered a gift under the Uniform Securities Act. It is a transaction. So pretty simple, non-assessable. It is not. Assessable it is. You want to add anything to that, Brian?
Nope.
It looks like we're over. We run for an hour. Got a 62 Trevor, Bloodbath, STC Excel channel. Okay, well, I'll Trevor link to a video called You Failed. Is it over? Spoiler alert, it's not. And it has my 5 recommendations about how to respond to that misfortune. So I will link that for you. Okay, Brian, don't jump the gun here. No gun jumping, but let me see if I can, in my off-grid location, come up with the... Okay, what do you want, Brian, for our chat term tonight?
For yesterday.
It's going to be, if you want to participate, Father, you got to put it in exactly the way Brian has it. I'm going to all caps, Father, into the chat, and then we will do the drawing for that. Now, let me see if I can put that up there for us. Let's see. Hold on just a sec. I got to get rid of Trevor. I've got to find Trevor. Where'd Trevor go? There's Trevor. There's Trevor. Boom. There's Trevor again. Trevor, I'll stick around after the drawing and finish off with you. But let's get the drawing done. There we go. Now let me go. Dean can find the giveaway tool. Share screen. Boom. And now I got to move this over here. Boom.
We spent a great Father's Day weekend on the Oregon coast this last week.
The Oregon coast is so beautiful. All right, so there it is. Father in the chat. If you want to do, we got 15 so far. Is that showing up, Brian, on the screen?
Yep.
All right.
Looks good.
I'm not going to mess with it. I usually like to do full screen, but I'm not going to push my luck tonight and try and mess with buttons. I think last week, didn't I accidentally shut myself down? I think I disappeared.
Yes. Yeah.
So, we don't want to do that, right? Okay, then when you claim it, just send your email to me. Remember, what you win is a scholarship for Thursday night's balance sheet class, 5 p.m. Thursday, and I'll send you the link when I get your email. That email should be sent to Dean at guruexamprep.com. All right, here we go. Last call for entries.
And the winner is
probably Marcel again. Marcel wins all the time. Man, I love that. I don't know if I can announce that. Raza. I like that. So Raza, send me an email, dean@guruexamprep.com, and to claim your winnings. You can also find that email address on the channel under information, and I will send you a link for Thursday night. You can sign that to someone else. If you can't make it, you want to give it to somebody else, feel free to do so. You can share it. If you want to bring a guest with you, that's fine as well. All right. Anything else for tonight? Let me just check chat one more time. Let me kill that. Boom. There's Brian and I. Looks like boom. Stay with them for guaranteed 1 year. Otherwise, you have to pay. Well, a lot of people do that. I don't know if it's enforceable. There you go. Shannon's saying that Brian's $100 supplement is well worth it. I think it's a great investment. Wow, he jumped 15, 20 points on his quizzes. That's fantastic. Shannon, I think you were doing the NASAA. I think Brian's distillations are good on every exam, but particularly on the NASAA exams. He's, on those NASAA exams, he's really good at getting that to those pivot points where the questions are. So particularly on NASAA exams, I like him for everything, but NASAA particularly. That's pretty common. I don't think that's enforceable, but I don't think you want to go there. Hopefully you don't need to have a tit for tat with your employer. Signed up for the class. There you go. On the 20th, there you go. Yeah, remember too, Trevor, that gives you the access to the office hour. So tonight I'll put up the office hour tomorrow morning. Check that. That's free, and you can register for that, and we can answer any questions you have. Everybody who pays money can do that. And I'm going to put up tonight or tomorrow morning the live stream overtime session. That's free for everybody. Those are the two free things on the booking page. And you have access to the free office hour because you did register for that class Thursday. Anything you did? Well, Shane, that's good debrief. He said he got a crypto question on the 66, Brian. That's the first I've heard of that. So usually I would think about, is it being offered as a security? Because that's the SEC and state administrators' big thing. I'd be interested, Shane, if you have any more debrief along the lines of that. We're not allowed to, Shane, say like what was question 35, but we are allowed to say what would have better prepared you for that answer, right? All right, well, let's call it a night. Remember, inch by inch, your exam's a cinch. Yard by yard, your exam is hard. And Brian, you say?
Keep it simple. The more you think, the more you sink. Stay with what you know. You take the test. Don't let the test take you.
So true. Words of wisdom. All right, everybody. See you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.